Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Severin Williams from Public Good PR, and we'll be moderating this event. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., the Kern County Planning Commission will hear comments regarding the proposed Kern County oil and gas extraction ordinance. If the county approves this ordinance, they would be fast-tracking the permitting of more than 67,000 new toxic oil and gas wells in Kern County with no significant environmental review. This approval would be devastating for public health and would be a climate disaster. A coalition of local residents and environmental and social justice groups have united to oppose this ordinance, and you will hear from several of them today. A petition with more than 7,000 signatures was dropped this morning at the Kern County Planning Commission office. And when we're done here, we plan to take questions from reporters in about 20 minutes or so. Most speakers will deliver their statements in English and in Spanish. Each speaker will speak fairly briefly. And then reporters wishing to ask questions can use the raise hand function in Zoom or type a note into the chat bar. Our speakers today include Elizabeth Perez, a community organizer for Central California Environmental Justice Network, Juan Flores, a community organizer for the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment, Bryan Osorio, the mayor of the city of Delano, Rosanna Esparza, clinical gerontologist and environmental health expert, and Annabelle Marquez, who's the president of the Committee for a Better Shafter. I will now introduce our first speaker, Juan Flores, again, community organizer for a Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment. Juan, take it away.
Thank you, Seth. And thank you everyone for attending today's press conference. Muchas gracias a todos los que están participando en esta conferencia de prensa hoy. I'm going to be delivering my statement both in English and Spanish, and I'll be starting in Spanish. Hola, mi nombre es Juan Flores. Soy un organizador comunitario para el Centro en Raza, Pobreza y el Medio Ambiente. Durante décadas, en el condado de Kern, nuestras comunidades de bajos ingresos y comunidades de color, primordialmente, han sufrido los impactos desproporcionados de las injusticias ambientales, desde mala calidad del aire hasta agua contaminada. Cuando se trata de salud pública, nuestro condado también le está fallando a nuestras comunidades, con unos altos números de cáncer, diabetes, asma y otras enfermedades crónicas que se ven agravadas por las malas decisiones que nuestros funcionarios públicos toman. Por ejemplo, esta ordenanza de petróleo y gas sin los análisis medioambientales y sanitarios necesarios. Con solo una revisión de impacto ambiental, están tratando de excusar más de 67,000 pozos de petróleo y gas nuevos en nuestro condado. ¿Cómo pueden saber cuáles serán los impactos en la salud de un pozo junto a una vivienda o una escuela cuando nadie está obligado a investigar esa ubicación específica? A los funcionarios del condado les gusta esconderse detrás del discurso de economía y trabajos, cuando deberían de buscar ejemplos fuera del condado de Kern y darse cuenta de que no tenemos que depender de una industria que está muriendo naturalmente. Al trabajar por una transición justa a una economía verde, podemos deshacer las desigualdades históricas y dar a nuestras comunidades acceso a trabajos remunerados que nos lleven a un futuro más saludable. Estos tipos de trabajo pueden aumentar la base positivamente y proporcionar beneficios a los trabajadores sin contaminar nuestro aire y agua y enfermar a la gente. El condado debe centrar su atención en cómo diversificar nuestra economía, invitando a industrias nuevas, limpias e innovadoras, que puedan proporcionar empleos limpios y, en última instancia, empresas que puedan proporcionar empleos por contrato bajo representación sindical. Si realmente queremos ser enérgicamente independientes, debemos invertir en energía verde renovable. Muchas gracias. Hi, my name is Juan Flores. I'm a community organizer for the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment. For decades, in Kern County, low-income communities and communities of color have suffered from the disproportionate impact of environmental injustices, from poor air quality to polluted water. When it comes to public health, our county is failing our communities as well. high numbers of cancer, diabetes, asthma, and other chronic disease that are exacerbated by the poor choices that our county officials make, such as trying to pass the oil and gas ordinance without the necessary environmental and health analysis. With only one environmental impact report, they are trying to excuse more than 67,000 new oil wells. How can they know what the health impacts are going to be of a well next to housing or a school when no one is required to research that specific location? County officials like to hide behind the discourse of jobs and economy, when they should be looking to examples outside of Kern County and realize that we do not have to depend in an industry that is dying naturally. By working for a just transition to a green economy, we can undo historic inequities and give our communities access to family wage paying jobs that leads us to a healthier future. These type of jobs can grow the tax base and provide worker benefits without polluting our air and water and making people sick. The county should focus their attention on how to diversify our economy by inviting new, clean, and innovative industries that can provide clean jobs, and ultimately companies that can provide contract jobs under union representation. If we truly want to be energy independent, we must invest in green renewable energy. Thank you. Back to you, Seb. You're muted, Seb. Sorry.
Sorry for that. I would now like to introduce Annabelle Marquez, the president for the Committee for a Better Shafter. Annabelle will deliver her message in Spanish, and then Juan will translate for her in English. Annabelle.
Hola, me llamo Annabelle Marquez.
Hello, my name is Annabelle Marquez.
Y soy residente de la ciudad de Shafter,
I'm a resident of Shafter, California.
presidenta del Comité para un Shafter Mejor.
And I'm the president of Committee for a Better Shafter.
El día de hoy estoy participando en esta conferencia de prensa
I'm participating in this press conference today
porque quiero decirle al condado de Kern no a la
Because
propuesta de ordenanza.
Continúe, por favor, doña Anabel.
¿Toda?
Sí.
A la propuesta de ordenanza del petróleo y gas. Nuestras comunidades sufren mucho por la contaminación de tierra, aire y agua, más aparte la pobreza de calidad de salud, que muchas de las personas de nuestra comunidad no deben ser usadas como zona de sacrificio en el nombre de la economía.
Deje y traduzco, doña Anabel.
Because
I want to ask Kern County to not pass the oil and gas ordinance. Our communities suffer greatly from the pollution of the soil, air, and water, plus the poor quality of health of many of the people. Our communities are not to be used as sacrificial zones in the name of the economy.
La vida de nuestros seres queridos, de todos los humanos,
our lives and the lives of all the human beings in the county
debería de estar
should be above
enfocado en no energías.
Should be above any profit of the oil companies.
¿Cómo pueden hacer que nuestras comunidades sean zona y económicamente virtuales sin tener que depender de las industrias?
We have to find ways that we can make our communities thriving communities without having to depend on the oil industry.
Sin tener, poco a poco como oficial público se debe a las comunidades, no al bolsillo de las grandes industrias.
As public officials, their duty is to take care of the communities and not the pockets of the big industries.
En este tiempo de pandemia,
during this time of pandemic,
donde la humanidad ha sido devastada,
where human life has been devastated,
ustedes prensas? ¿Han
You,
estado
the
el
peop-
100%?
you, the people of the press,
¿Han estado al 100% dándonos datos de gente que se ha muerto por esta enfermedad?
have been giving us reliable data, 100% about the effect and the amount of deaths that have been suffering in our communities.
Pero yo pregunto, ¿dónde han estado todas estas décadas en que se nos han ido nuestros seres queridos?
And my question is, where have our elected officials been all this time?
Se nos han ido tantos seres queridos, y no tan solo eso, sino también el mar, el agua, los animales. No tenemos, vamos a llegar a un tiempo en que no tenemos de qué vivir.
But we have also suffered from major loss because of poor air quality or polluted water. Many lives have been lost in our communities due to environmental hazards. Not
Aquí
only
en
our
nuestra-
human life has been impacted, but as well the oceans and the mountains and every natural oasis that we used to have.
Aquí en nuestra comunidad se nos van cada día 4, 3, 5 personas diarias.
Here in my community, it's not unusual to hear that we're losing 3, 4, or even 5 people every day.
Nuestras criaturas están cerca de tanta contaminación, a pies, ni a 100 pies de retirada a las escuelas de petróleo.
Our children are exposed to environmental hazards as well. For an example, our schools are so close to oil wells, some of them not even 100 feet away.
Imagínense un pueblito tan pequeño con más de 300 pozos petroleros.
Imagine Chapter is such a small town and it has more than 300 oil wells,
Más los que quieren hacer.
plus all the many more that would be added if this ordinance passes.
¿Qué nos espera?
What can we wait for? What can we expect?
¿Cómo le decimos a nuestros seres queridos que ya están enfermos que le echen ganas, que vamos a salir adelante, si sabemos que no hay un futuro?
How can we tell our loved ones that are already suffering from health consequences that there's a brighter future when such decisions are being made by the county?
Son tantas las enfermedades de asma, fiebre del valle, alergias, cáncer, tantas cosas que se nos están dañando a nuestra comunidad.
There are so many diseases and sicknesses in our communities, like cancer, asthma, allergies, valley fever, that are exacerbating our communities on a daily basis.
Se nos han muerto niños que se los han llevado y no saben de qué se mueren. Si la
There
fiebre
has
del
been-
valle es un virus o es un pollution que se mete dentro de los órganos de la persona y del ser humano y que nunca se había descubierto, apenas hace 1 año o 2 años que la descubrieron. ¿Pero por qué? Porque quizá los doctores no tenían el derecho de decir nada.
We have had cases in our community of children that have died of unknown causes, and that's very sad. The same goes with valley fever. It wasn't until a few years that our community suffered some of the most impactful events of valley fever, and many of our doctors were not even aware of what treatments to give to our people. And sometimes we ask, how come that our doctors do not have the technology or the resources necessary to be able to tackle some of these health issues?
Las industrias buscan poder y nosotros buscamos vida para la humanidad.
So the picture that we see here in Kern County is that the industry, the oil industry, seeks power, while we, the community, the only thing we're seeking is for an opportunity to live our lives.
Por favor, pónganse la mano en el corazón y digan, no más ordenanzas de gas y petróleo. Muchas
So
gracias.
I ask Kern County officials, please put your hand in your heart and say no to this ordinance. No more to any ordinance that would allow for more oil wells in our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Annabelle, for that. I'd like to introduce Rosanna Esparza. Rosanna is not an official part of this coalition, but is very active on these issues in the community and is a clinical gerontologist and environmental health expert. Rosanna, please.
Well, first I need to tell you that I am a part of this coalition because I live and breathe this air. I am part of the community, and it's essential that all of us, whether we work for nonprofits or we work for environmental justice, or we work for oil and gas, or we work for the schools, anyone who lives here has a responsibility, and we are asking for you to step up and think about the impacts that these are causing you. There are no barriers to where our air quality ends. You are implicated as well. So I am part of this coalition, and I'm here volunteering my time because I think it's that important. I'm going to start my comments first en español y después en inglés. Los impactos a la salud debido de emisiones atmosféricas de petróleo y gas están comenzando de ser publicados en revistas donde la investigación relaciona la exposición y estas emisiones con efectos de salud subcrónicos, resultados adversos de embarazo, así como mayor prevalencia de síntomas tales como irritación de la garganta, irritación nasal, problemas del seno nasal y ardo de ojos, dolores de cabeza, tos persistente, sarpullido y sangrado nasales frecuentes entre los encuestados que viven a menos de 15,000 pies de las instalaciones, en comparación con aquellos que viven más de 15,000 pies. Investigaciones han demostrado que los líquidos de fracturación, lodos de perforación, flujo de retorno y las aguas producidas contienen sustancias químicas que en dosis elevadas o ciertas concentraciones se han asociado con efectos a la salud, incluyendo irritación de la piel y de los ojos, daño neurológico y daño al sistema nervioso, cáncer y alteraciones endocrinas. What I've just said is health impacts due to air emissions from oil and gas development are beginning to be reported in peer-reviewed journals, where the research is linking the exposure to these emissions with subchronic health effects. It's like birth defects, birth outcomes, low birth weight babies, blue babies, babies born with spina bifida, as well as a higher prevalence of symptoms such as throat and nasal irritation, sinus problems, eyes burning, severe headaches, persistent cough, skin rashes, and frequent nosebleeds from those living within 1,500 feet of oil and gas facilities compared to those who live more than 1,500 feet away. Fracking fluid, drilling mud, flowback, and produced water contain chemicals that at elevated doses or certain concentrations are associated with health effects, including skin and eye irritation, neurological and nervous system damage, cancer, and endocrine disruption. Apart from these facts, the reality is, as a resident of Kern County, I have been impacted and I've been affected. And if we don't start putting a face to those who have been affected and impacted, then we need to start that now. My colleague Anabel just gave you a heart-wrenching collection of issues and impacts that have happened to her personally and to her community of Shafter. I've lost 43 close friends, neighbors, colleagues, and family members to diseases such as COVID, valley fever, and a number of other respiratory illnesses. The most painful was my husband of 20 years, who died on November 26th of 2020. This is personal. We who live in the community may have chronic problems. We may have diabetes. We may have obstructive pulmonary disease, but it is exacerbated by our exposure every day to the types of chemicals that are used in the production and basic lack of knowledge of our elected officials. We suffer from ignorance and stupidity when it comes to who we elect to represent us. It is the responsibility of those who are the leaders, alleged leaders of our community, to be up to par and on point with what they know about the impacts of oil and gas on public health. There are books like Oil and Gas for Dummies. There are books for people who don't know anything about how the respiratory system works. They are simple, they are direct, but even more so, go outside and take a breath. See how long you can hold that breath before you start to cough. And then ask yourself, was it like this 10 years ago? Was it like this 5 years ago? I live in two places. I live in Kern County and I also live at the coast. Why? Because my health has been so compromised from the number of years that I lived in Kern County that I had a choice. Either stay and be sick and die, or stay half-time and come back and do my work. I'm privileged to be able to have that choice. My colleagues and my neighbors aren't. This new attack on the residents of Kern County, it needs to be really examined. What are the implications behind it? What are we really looking for? Do we really care about what the health impacts are of oil and gas? If we did, we would have done something about it long ago. We have studies that have recently been published. We had one from Harvard, we had one from Stanford, we've had reports from UC San Francisco, from Berkeley, all pointing to the same issues: the neurological damage, the higher prevalence of symptoms for people of color who are poor and who don't have any other options. Whether we speak in Spanish or we speak in English, we speak truth. And we are asking elected officials and people who are appointed to commissions to consider, number one, setbacks. What's safe? What's safe for those people living in the community? Number two, we need to think about the amount of pesticides that are being sprayed on us without our knowledge, without being given any forewarning, no evidence that we're about to be doused with DDT or other chemicals that we say we haven't used in years, but we still do. This has to stop, and it stops now. Back to you, Sev.
Rosanna, thank you so much for those very powerful words. We have two more speakers. I'd like to introduce at this point Bryan Osorio, the mayor of the city of Delano in Kern County. Bryan, thank you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bryan Osorio, and I am the mayor for the city of Delano. Today, I am joining environmental justice advocates and community leaders in their fight to oppose this ordinance. And I ask that other elected officials and appointed commissioners to listen to these marginalized communities and to also support their opposition to this oil and gas ordinance. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Bryan Osorio y soy alcalde de la ciudad de Delano. Hoy me uno a los defensores de la justicia ambiental y las comunidades de Kern County en su lucha para oponer la ordenanza de petróleo y gas. Y pido que otros elegidos del condado de Kern también se opongan a esta ordenanza. Where do I begin? Today you heard Ms. Marquez, Ms. Esparza give impactful stories. It is gut-wrenching to hear their firsthand experience, their fears and concerns about how this ordinance will continue to deteriorate the quality of life here in Kern County. No sé cómo alguien escucha las experiencias de la señora Marquez, de la señora Esparza, y no cuestionen cómo van a apoyar una ordenanza como la que estamos poniéndonos hoy. Nomás quiero decir muchas gracias a señor Marquez y señora Esparza, porque a mí me impactó mucho sus historias y sé que los que van a escuchar también les van a impactar. I want to touch on further what Mr. Flores mentioned about how low-income communities are going to be disproportionately impacted by this oil and gas ordinance. And I say this even further because of the time we're living in, which is in COVID-19. During COVID-19, I've volunteered at over 20 food distributions in Delano specifically, and I see how impacted low-income communities are. And I can only imagine how this oil and gas ordinance, if it were to pass, would be just another obstacle for communities, another obstacle that is going to just ruin their quality of life and worsen the air quality in which they live in which we all live in. Desde el inicio de la pandemia, he participado en casi 20 distribuciones de comida y pienso en la gente que ha ido, que por la parte mayor son gente de bajos ingresos. Y nomás me imagino que ahorita están sufriendo por la pandemia y van a sufrir más con esta decisión para pasar la ordenanza de petróleo y gas. No va a reunir su calidad de vida, pero también va va a ser la calidad de aire más peor, lo cual está. I want to draw to specific numbers that happened between 2015 and 2019. And that is that in that time span, Kern County issued around 18,000 oil and gas permits. Around 98% of those oil and gas permits were in low-income communities. Low-income communities such as Shafter, Lost Hills, Arvin, and what was the other one? And Lamont. Lo que quiero que nos enfoquemos es en las cifras de entre 2015 y 2019. El condado de Kern dio casi 18,000 permisos de petróleo y gas, y esos permisos se dieron en comunidades de bajos ingresos como Lamont, Lost Hills, Shafter y Arvin. Y eso es importante, and this is important, I'll go back to English, and this is important because we know that emissions from oil and gas infrastructure contaminate water and soil, and the people who are most exposed to this are the low-income communities where they're surrounded by. And it is because of this that these communities that I mentioned, Wasco, Shafter, Arvin, and Lamont, that are going to suffer the most from the oil and gas ordinance. And so, again, I think this is an issue of equity. I think this is an issue of divesting from resources that will slowly fade out in the coming decades, and for us to just be prepared for a just transition. And it is not just the right thing for air quality, it's the right thing for our citizens here in Kern County. Otra vez, nomás quiero decir que esto es un caso de inigualdad y es algo para proteger a nuestras comunidades y también proteger la calidad de aire y vida que tenemos aquí en el condado de Kern. Thank you y gracias.
Thank you very much, Mayor Osorio. Our last speaker before we open the Q&A session is Elizabeth Perez, a community organizer for the Central California Environmental Justice Network. Elizabeth.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Perez, and I'm a community organizer for Central California Environmental Justice Network. Like my previous colleagues did, I'm going to start my speech in Spanish, and I will go on to English. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Elizabeth Pérez y soy una organizadora comunitaria con la Red de Justicia Ambiental de Centro California. El condado de Kern, California, se encuentra ahora mismo en una encrucijada de combustibles fósiles. El resultado de esta ordenanza propuesta irá más allá de la retórica para mostrarnos la dirección real que nuestro estado y esta comunidad tomará durante las próximas 2 décadas en lo que respecta a la política del cambio climático. La perforación de petróleo y gas es un factor importante que contribuye al cambio climático. La perforación de petróleo y gas tiene fugas de metano, conocido por ser un acelerador del cambio climático. Mientras California enfrenta incendios forestales históricos y sequías prolongadas, esta expansión de la extracción de combustibles fósiles enviaría exactamente la señal incorrecta sobre cómo el Estado debería abordar el cambio climático y el esfuerzo por la justicia social y ambiental. California no puede seguir afirmando ser líder en justicia ambiental y climática a menos que se concentre en reducir el suministro de combustibles fósiles, además de la demanda. La administración Biden está señalando un movimiento nacional en la dirección opuesta a esta ordenanza por supuesta y ha establecido un objetivo ambicioso para la nación de lograr un 100% de electricidad limpia para 2035 y cero emisiones en toda la economía para 2050. Para las comunidades que viven en el condado de Kern que desean un futuro seguro para el clima y todas las generaciones futuras, hacemos un llamado a la Comisión de Planificación, la Junta de Supervisores y el gobernador Newsom para que abandonen este aumento, por supuesto, a la extracción local del petróleo y el gas. Once again, hi, my name is Elizabeth Perez, and I'm a community organizer with Central California Environmental Justice Network. Kern County and California are at a fossil fuel crossroads right now. The outcome of this proposed ordinance will reach beyond rhetoric to show us the actual direction our state and our community will head over the next 2 decades when it comes to climate change policy. Oil and gas drilling is a significant contributor to climate change. Oil and gas drilling leaks methane, known to be a climate change accelerator. As California faces historic wildfires and prolonged drought, this expansion of fossil fuels extraction would send exactly the wrong signal about how the state should approach climate change and the effort to enact social and environmental justice. California cannot continue to claim to be a leader in environmental and climate justice unless it focuses on reducing the supply of fossil fuels in addition to the demand. The Biden administration is signaling a national movement in the opposite direction from this proposed ordinance and has set an ambitious goal for the nation of getting to 100% clean electricity by 2035 and to net zero emissions economy-wide by 2050. For the communities who live in Kern County who want a climate safe future, and for all future generations, we call upon the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors, and Governor Newsom to abandon this proposed increase in local oil and gas extraction. And I just want to echo some of the points that my colleagues made in previously, that climate change, the effects of this and on climate change will affect the communities that live near oil and gas wells, who are mostly made up of Latino low-income families. Climate change will make our area hotter. And in the future, there might be a reduction in water supply, meaning that a lot of people will run out of water or have contaminated water that they won't be able to use, as well as be breathing air with the increased wildfire seasons that we're having today and will possibly continue to increase in the future. So it's important that we take note of this and protect the families who are going to be affected the most, which was, again, our Latino low-income families. Back to you, Seth.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to end the live speaker part of the press conference and open it up to questions and answers. If you have a question you would like answered, please type it into the Q&A. You can see the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, most likely. And we will answer the questions as they come in. Our first question is from Aaron Cantu from Capitol in Maine. And the question is for Mayor Osorio. The question is, have you spoken with other city or municipal officials in Kern County who feel similar to you? And if so, how have they made their thoughts on the ordinance known to the county? Mayor Osorio.
Great question. I would say that I don't know where a lot of other elected officials in Kern County stand. I know that Councilmember Solorio Ruiz from Delano City Council also opposes this oil and gas ordinance, but I'm assuming that community advocates have already tried doing a call to action from other elected officials, and I'm not sure what responses they received, but it's a good question. I have not spoken to other elected officials other than Salvador Solorio Ruiz.
Thank you. We have a question also. What are you encouraging people to do inside Kern County, especially in relation to the Planning Commission meeting, That can be Juan, Elizabeth, I think either.
Seth, can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
The question is, what are you encouraging residents to do in relationship to the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow night?
Definitely. Well, we are, first of all, we're inviting them to participate and be as active as possible. Tomorrow, there's going to be an option for them to participate live while the meeting is being broadcast on YouTube. But there has been already a good amount of residents that have left voicemails, recordings. As we know, during pandemic times, the access to a computer, specifically on our low-income communities, you know, and their families, they might only have one computer, one laptop, and they're sharing it with the youth in the house to make sure that they're doing their work, their homework for school. So some of them pre-recorded their messages and sent them over already. Some others have already sent email comments as well. And as you mentioned today, Seb, we deliver over 7,000 petitions to the Kern County Planning Commission of people concerned in Kern County and our neighboring towns as well that want to have their voices being heard. But ultimately, what we want to do and what we're inviting our community members to do is to participate, be active, either submit a comment via email, leave a voicemail, or to participate tomorrow during the live meeting.
Great, thank you for that. We have no open questions at this point in time. If anybody would like to ask a question, you can do so in the Q&A section, or you can raise your hand. And I'll just wait another moment. There is a hand raised. From Colby from Politico. Mary, can you spotlight Colby? Mary, are you working on getting Colby in there?
I think Colby can unmute himself and ask his question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to just ask it audio only. That's totally fine.
Okay.
So I had two questions, if that's all right. My first question is about what kind of process has there been in terms of your coalition, either submitting comments to any of these bodies or maybe having meetings with any of the officials, and kind of what has that engagement been like in recent weeks and months?
Well, I think again, maybe Juan or Eli.
Sure, Eli, go ahead. I saw that you muted yourself. Go ahead, Eli.
Thank you. As far as the process of getting comments, due to COVID right now, we're not directly able to outreach to people the way that we're used to, which is door-to-door outreach events. So what we've been doing is online petition. We've been pushing that on social media, as well as doing phone banking and text banking. A lot of our petitions did come from that, from multiple organizations. We also did mass distributions in the past, and through that we were able to get some signatures as well. Today we delivered over 2,000 signatures to the Planning Commission, both via email and in person.
Gotcha, thanks so much. And my second question, I guess, is wondering, you know, thinking back to, I think it was around 2015 or something like that, there was the previous, you know, environmental statement tied to the wells, which was overturned by a court last year, of course. And so, like, you know, like, what's to say that these Kern County bodies won't just go ahead and pass these again? I mean, you know, kind of, I mean, like, they seem motivated, like, to do so, of course, and to try to overcome being overturned by the court. So I guess what's gonna stop them essentially from doing this?
Thank you, Colby. So my short answer would be that really we need here leadership from the state as well. At this moment, state legislature and the governor directly can actually take direct action to make sure that our communities get protected and that this ordinance doesn't move forward at the same time. it would take a great deal for Governor Newsom to do it. But God, I mean, for the last 10 years, we have been asking previously Governor Brown, then Governor Newsom to take action on this. This takes the leadership of the state. Governors in the state of California like to claim that we are the example state for the rest of the nation, you know, when it comes to aggressive environmental regulations or protections, I'm sorry. But reality is that when it comes to oil and gas, we fell way behind. I mean, the fact that Texas has a setback limit and that California does not, from oil wells being on close proximity to homes and schools and other sensitive receptors, that tells you a lot, you know? So I guess my message would also be for Governor Newsom, which would be, you know, let's words and more action. If you truly want to be a champion on the environmental justice fight, take the right actions, you know, take the actions that are truly going to protect our communities, that are going to go against some of these hard-headed elected officials, you know. You recall it correctly, in 2015, we already went through something like this. The judge already said, you know, this is faulty. This is a really bad ordinance. And here they are, you know, one more time being pushed by the powers of the industry. And again, I'm not sure if it's the ignorance of elected officials of Kern County to realize that there's new ways to create energy. There's new ways that we can bring more vibrant, innovative industries into our county that could make it more diversified in economy. And we don't really, like I said on my comments earlier, so that we don't depend anymore on an industry that is dying naturally, you know? And we also have to prepare for that. Part of all of this is that, how do we prepare for when Chevron decides to pick up their stuff and leave, you know? And that is nothing new. Chevron already in 2019 said that they want to divest from the oil in Kern County because it's really expensive to refine. So those things are coming. So one more time, just to circle, we need leadership from the state. We do need that leadership to truly be able to stop this, or otherwise every 5 years we're gonna keep continuing having this fight, you know, and that's not healthy either for the county or residents.
Yeah, that's helpful. I really appreciate it. And just a quick follow-up, and then I'll yield my time, is just wanted to ask if there's anything in this new ordinance that y'all are satisfied with somewhat. I mean, like, they're saying that they're doing all these improvements, but I was wanting to know if that matches with what, you know, how you're feeling.
Well, you know, we continue to do analysis of this current or this 2.0 ordinance, and obviously we're not happy. I mean, the fact that it's still going to continue to allow 67,000 oil wells with only one environmental impact report, that tells you a lot, you know. It's like trying to excuse the next smoke check on your vehicle when you bought your first vehicle and said, I'm only going to make a smoke check on my first vehicle, and for the rest of my life, the other vehicles don't need it, you know, because you have to trust me that I chop and I do good chopping on cars. It's the same with this ordinance. It's crazy that with just one environmental impact report, they want to excuse this 67,000 oil wells. So as you can tell, the fact that we're here on this press conference, we're not happy, you know, until we truly see measures that are geared towards protecting the well-being and the health of our residents. Gotcha. And I don't know if any of my colleagues want
I want to jump in on this particular response. This is Rosanna. You know, there's a phrase, saying in Spanish, del dicho al hecho hay un gran trecho. Saying and doing are two different things. This is it. This is this ordinance. What they say, what they do are two entirely different things. The rhetoric behind, we follow the most stringent regulations. Okay, we follow the most stringent regulations. How about we're the only state that requires regulations as the truth? You know, we can't continue to buy the rhetoric that's coming out of their mouths. The other thing is that we're not thinking downstream enough about abandoned wells and what that impact is and what it means to us that are living in the community that are threatened on a daily basis from the emissions coming from abandoned wells. We can no longer stuff a well with firewood, set it on fire and say, oh, it's taken care of, it's clean. Fire flooding is not the latest technology, but yet this is what's been done in the past, and those wells are still leaking. School less than 50 feet away from a fence line. This is an issue. This is a problem. We need to start thinking more globally about the impact of these emissions. The number of wells, I have no beef with people making a living. What I do have is making a living off of me as a canary in the coal mine. It's not okay. I'm sure you all recall the story. We used to send canaries down into the coal mines, and if they came back, fine, the air was okay. Guess what? We're the canaries and we're not okay and we're not fine. The difference is we can speak and we are doing it now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. The next question will go to Janet Wilson. Janet, if you can unmute yourself and just announce your outlet, if you would.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I am with the Desert Sun, which is part of the USA Today network. I have not read the county submission yet, so I apologize for that. But following up on the second question that was just asked, which kind of covered it, I'm wondering, last I had written about this and heard the appellate court actually left some room for Kern County to come back and reinstate this if they did do proper environmental reviews that got at all of the harm. So are there specific pieces of what they're proposing that you're saying aren't complying with that court order, or are you still doing your analysis and so not quite ready to comment on the specifics of what they're presenting? And then the second question I had was the original approval was for 72,000 new oil wells, and now it's down to 67,000. Is that because that many have already been permitted that it's now reduced to 67,000? Just sort of a bookkeeping. Thanks very much.
Hi, Janet. Thank you. For the first question, I think the answer that I would like to give is we're still analyzing the document. Some of our residents barely received that last week, and and it's about this big, you know, like it's huge. Anabel was making fun the other day about it. She said, how do they expect me to read it just before the planning commission, you know? So we're still reviewing it, but obviously the quick review that our legal team has done in that they continue to do, hence why some of them are not here today, it's because they're actively working on it. It's the fact, again, that there's only one environmental impact report, and that's a major no-no. That would be that. For the second question, can you refresh me again? I'm sorry, Janet. What was the second part of the question? I know I have asked an answer and I just slipped out of my head. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for the first answer. So I believe originally when they passed this, it was for 72,000 permits for new wells, and now it's down to 67,000. So I'm wondering if the difference is that all those other permits have already been issued under the old ordinance, or they are reducing those numbers down somewhat as they did their own review, or maybe a mixture.
For that, I want to say that it's probably a mixture of things. The first one that comes to my mind is that since last year, when the court gave the ruling, Kern County is not able to give any more permits under that ordinance, right? So I think now that goes to the state, if I'm not mistaken. The other reason why I would, but then there's also some permits that have been given. So yes, it could be a little mixture of that. My other hunch would be that perhaps last year, we also saw that CRC, California Resource Corporation, went into bankrupt. So they as a company don't exist as such, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be a matter perhaps as well of asking the county, how did that reduction happen? So that would be my other hunch, because CRC was a big company, you know, that if I'm not mistaken, they did one on bankrupts last year. So that might be why, but I'm not 100% sure. That's just my guess.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to ask them too at some point, but I figured I would take advantage of your collective brains. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Janet, for that question. And are there any other questions? We don't have any in the queue, and I don't see any hands in the moment. I'll just wait one more second.
Mr. Williams, can I ask a question?
Please do.
Is Mr. Cantu still here?
Is Aaron still here? I don't
see him
anymore.
Okay, I was just gonna add that I wanted to confirm with another council member on their position, but I guess it's not relevant.
We can email him afterwards. Okay, well, I do believe that is all of our questions, and I want to thank all of our speakers very much. And I also want to thank the reporters who joined us today. You can follow up. We can organize direct interviews with anybody who you've heard so far. You can email me at sev@publicgoodpr. You can call me at 510-336-9566. We will have a recording of this press conference that we will get posted. We can also just share it with you if you email me. And the Planning Commission meeting is tomorrow at 7. It will likely go from the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors, and we anticipate within a few weeks, like 3 to 6 weeks, it will likely be heard by the board. At which point in time we anticipate a decision will likely be made. So feel free to contact us if you want any more information. We'll be in touch with you. And again, thank you all for joining today. We really appreciate it. This concludes this event.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.